What's up, everybody? Writers, readers, story lovers. Welcome to Storytime with Writers Playground. Thanks so much for joining us. My name is Merrick Humbert.
And I am Mariana Davila.
And we're your hosts. And first things first, since our last episode just a few days ago, Mariana had a birthday. So happy birthday, my love.
Thanks.
Another year around the sun. How do you feel?
I feel old. Like I want time to slow down, but thank you. We had a nice day.
Yes, indeed. But other than that, we have just been nose to the grindstone, busting our butts as we are approaching the end of our current competition, and we're getting close.
That's right. We will be announcing the winning stories from our 12th competition 1 week from today. Can you believe it?
I can't.
And if you're listening to this episode on the day it is released, of course, that would be next Thursday, April 30th. And we can wait to announce the winning stories.
Yep, remember, we're on New York Eastern Time, so for our friends in Australia, it could end up being May 1st.
I can't wait. We got some rereading to do now and some debating between ourselves as we narrow things down and make those final choices. And it is always so hard.
Oh, for sure. It's art, and how can you really compare one great story to the next when they're completely different? There are so many factors and nuances that go into that decision-making process. And we don't always agree, but we have to come to a consensus, and that's one of the reasons we like to select 10 winning stories and then another 10 honorable mentions. So all these writers put a lot of time and work into this, and there's always a lot of great pieces and some good pieces that we really enjoy that we aren't able to recognize, but it's all par for the course.
And it is a lot of fun. And since we will be announcing the winning stories next week, that means that for our next episode of Storytime with Writers Playground, we will be sharing the winning story from this current competition. So look forward to that. But for now, let's get into our story for today.
Yes, let's. Today we will be reading a lovely piece called One Small Step for a Man by Erin, Brandt, Filliter, which won 7th place out of 642 entries in our 9th Playground Challenge. And the story follows the protagonist Gordon, who navigates the social complexities of a new family dynamic. Meanwhile, set in the 60s, astronauts are exploring new frontiers in space.
And Erin Brandt Filliter is a talented writer from New Brunswick, Canada. And you can follow her work on her website, erinfilliterature.squarespace.com. So make sure to go check that out. And this information will be in the description wherever you are listening to this. But for now, enjoy One Small Step for a Man. Here we go. One Small Step for a Man by Erin Brandt Filliter. The day that Neil Armstrong landed on the moon, Gordon labored in his garden picking peas. A collective gasp whooshed through living rooms across his neighborhood the moment the astronauts sunk their feet into the cosmic dust. Meanwhile, Gordon plucked the juicy pods from their vines, tendrils holding onto the trellis in tiny spirals like they were holding on to life itself. He had more important things to worry about than not being invited to the neighbors' parties to watch the moon landing. His fingers cramped from the repetitive pinching and his jaw ached from clenching. Sweat glistened on his forehead and clumped the wisps of thinning hair atop his head. The bell on his mailbox chimed, pulling his focus temporarily from the plants. Gordon did not want to receive the letter that was likely delivered by the postman that day. He hauled carrots and beets from the ground in bunches. Specks of dirt rocketed around his forearms as he pulled the vegetables like they were the root of all his problems. Wasps, loyal to their queen and hunting for meat or sugar, gathered around his sweaty head. The buzzing was enough to drive a man crazy. He made a mental note to find the nest and add Ray to the shopping list. As if on cue, Sally's tearing cries poured out of the open window. Gordon gathered his crop and washed up with the hose before going inside to check on his nearly 4-year-old stepdaughter.
Hey, darling.
He sang as he pulled her from her crib, making another mental note that she'd outgrown it and he needed to get her a big girl bed. She clutched a blue stuffed horse in her chubby fingers. Her sleep-heavy body molded into his arms. She nuzzled her face into the crook of his salty, air-coated neck like it was the safest place in the world. "Hi, Gordo," she said in a whispery sweet voice right into his ear. While the neighborhood kids were gathered around fuzzy black and white TVs watching Buzz and Neil and their perfect mothers in perky dresses serve snacks on trays, Gordon gave Sally a bowl of berries with a splash of heavy cream and avoided the world outside, especially the mailbox. But he couldn't ignore the phone.
Hello?
Gordon answered instinctively. "Hello, Mr. Falkins?" An official-sounding female voice came through the receiver. Gordon shuddered. "Did you happen to get our letter? It should have arrived yesterday, or today." He knew that hanging up would be another strike against him, so he inhaled a calming breath and replied,
No, I'm afraid I was in the garden and haven't checked the mail yet.
"Well, let me go over the contents with you now." The words of the Child Protective Services agent jumbled into a long, stringy sentence. The words coiled around his heart like the phone cord cutting off circulation around his finger. No mother, unfit, a man can't raise a girl on his own, and the final stab. She's not really your daughter. He cursed Madeleine for not having a will. In fairness, they'd both assumed he'd kick the bucket first, given their age difference. After their quick engagement and small wedding with Sally as a flower girl, they discussed formalizing Sally's adoption, but never got around to it.
We were such fools,
he thought. He was pulled from his self-abasement by the words, "You're just going to have to surrender Sally to the state, Mr. Falkins. We'll find her a good home with a father and a mother. Do you understand?" He didn't understand, and he wanted to say that much and more, but he didn't want Sally to overhear and be alarmed. She'd been through enough. So instead he said,
I think you'll find that I'm a suitable father who loves Sally very much. Perhaps you can come to the house and see for yourself.
They set a time for the CPS agent to come the next morning, though she made no promises about the outcome of the visit. Gordon got to work to show how good and stable a home he could provide, wife or no wife. He gathered Sally and dressed her for shopping. At Sears, they picked out a new bed and outfit, both purple, her favorite. A blue horse was embroidered onto the front of the sweater.
Just like your snuggly toy, Horse Ed,
Gordon said. Madeleine had named it in a tribute to her favorite, the Ed Sullivan Show. The posh cashier packed up the shopping bag as the workers carted her off the bed to the delivery van. She winked at Sally. "Your mother must be very proud to have such a pretty daughter. And what a dedicated grandfather to be taking his granddaughter on a shopping trip." Sally squeezed Gordon's one hand as he grabbed the paper bag with the other. It crunched a little too aggressively in the weight of Gordon's grip. The pair managed tight smiles and thank yous as they left the counter. At the grocery store, they bought milk, eggs, and bread through the judgmental stares of housewives pushing carts filled with Miracle Whip and Jell-O. Gordon picked out a banana loaf from the bakery section and fancy teas. He realized while packing the paper bags into the trunk of his Chevy wagon that he'd forgotten the raid.
No time.
He thought.
I'll grab it later this week. More important things to do.
When they got home, Gordon put swing jazz on the record player. Sally danced her dolls around their living room, while Gordon scrubbed, vacuumed, tidied, mopped, folded, and arranged. In the few months since Madeleine's death, he developed an efficient cleaning routine. He could do the entire first floor by the time the A-side of Benny Goodman's Carnegie Hall album finished spinning on the Victrola. The delivery man with the new bed arrived. Gordon ignored their stunned faces when he opened the door in his rubber cleaning gloves and answered the inevitable question. "Is your wife home to tell us where to put this kid's bed?" It was like he could read their minds. Poor schmuck has to raise a kid alone. Why wouldn't he just call CPS? Gordon showed them upstairs. He wiped the tabletop, avoiding their confused and pitiful stares as they took away the cardboard boxes. He hustled around the kitchen, preparing egg salad sandwiches for dinner.
Your mommy used to say that I make the best egg salad sandwiches.
Gordon smiled at Sally's enthusiastic chewing.
She said that was one of the reasons she married me.
Mrs. Jewett said it's because Mommy didn't want to be alone with a baby, Sally said matter-of-factly. Gordon breathed, nostrils flaring slightly.
Nosy Mrs. Jewett next door.
He fumed to himself.
I'm sure it might have seemed that way to Mrs. Jewett, but she's wrong. Your mother and I loved each other very much. I'm the luckiest man in the world to have gotten to spend time with her, and even luckier to spend time with you.
I miss her, Sally said, looking longingly at her Wonder Bread as if the spirit of her mother was hidden in the holes and ridges of the toasted surface. But it's nice to be with you too, Gordo. She leaned over and kissed his scruffy cheek. He wiped the familiar dampness around his eyes away with a napkin.
All right, darling. Bedtime for the both of us. Big day tomorrow.
After a fitful sleep, he woke Sally with the promise of pancakes, Aunt Jemima's best recipe. He laid out her new outfit and made sure she brushed her teeth. He mowed the front lawn while she played on the front steps close by. The Bennett kids across the street were building a cardboard rocket ship. Apollo 11 looped across the side of the construction in scrawling black paint. Sally stared at the children who mostly ignored her, except to stick their tongues out from time to time. Mrs. Bennet, with her stranded pearls and crimson lipstick, was their street's second most prolific gossip next to Mrs. Hewitt. Gordon had no doubt the two busybodies had spread instructions throughout the neighborhood children to never play with a motherless runt like Sally. How can a child be normal growing up without a mother? He imagined her Midwestern drawl perfectly forming the ugly words. Sally was better off without them. He smiled at his precious girl. The agent arrived promptly before lunch in her sedan with a magnetic logo on the car door. Child Protective Services, around an official coat of arms. She clipped along the walkway, a study in beige from her practical shoes to her unassuming skirt and cardigan. Her wide-rimmed glasses and tight bun aged her at least 15 years. "Good morning, Mr. Falkins." She offered him a firm handshake while staring at Sally sitting on the step. "That's a lovely toy horse you have. What's his name?" "Eddie. Mama named it after Ed Snuffyland." Sally stammered around the agent's intense gaze. The CPS agent giggled. Gordon reluctantly chuckled too. Her chiming laughter defied the menacing bureaucrat he expected.
Sally, darling.
Gordon put a reassuring hand on her shoulder.
Can you play in the backyard for a bit while I have a talk with the nice lady inside?
Sally nodded and scampered off to the backyard. The Bennett kids loved a few jeers and taunts as she disappeared around the side of the house. Gordon sighed out his urge to reply in kind to the jerky neighbors while opening the front door to the lady in beige. "I'm Patty Doak, Miss Doak, if you don't mind, for officiousness." He nodded. She already knew everything about him. He put the kettle on for tea and sliced the banana loaf. In his periphery, she assessed his spotless home. "You sure you don't have a woman living here, Mr. Falkins? Or housekeeper?" she asked as she swept a finger along the chair rail to reveal not a speck of dust.
No, ma'am.
He replied.
Just me and Sally for the past 4 months since my wife...
"I know," she cut him off. "I've read the file." The awkward pause filled the room like a helium balloon. Gordon's resolve redoubled under its presence.
Can I show you around?
He offered, and guided Miss Doak upstairs. He showed her Sally's new purple bed and closet full of clean clothes. In the bathroom, he pointed to Sally's toothbrush and explained how his veterans benefits offer dental coverage. He even revealed the linen closet with its neatly arranged towels and bedding. "It's all very impressive," Miss Doak said, as she settled at the table with a cup of Earl Grey and a slice of rich banana loaf. "But don't you think Sally needs a mother? Let's think about what is best for her." The balloon of anger inflated inside his chest again. He exhaled.
I think what's best for Sally is stability. Her father was deployed to Vietnam and died before she ever met him. We didn't catch her mother's cancer in time before it killed her. I'm the only parent she knows.
"Except, legally speaking, you are not her parent." Gordon absorbed the reality of that statement. It seemed as inconceivable as a man walking on the moon. He stared at the wet crumbs on her plate through the tears forming around his eyelids. "We're not just concerned about what is or isn't legal. It is best for Sally to grow up in a home with a mother, especially as she's getting older. You have to agree, Gordon." She patted his forearm. A shriek from the backyard interrupted their discourse. Gordon rushed out to find Sally screaming and swatting at a swarm of wasps soldiering out of a nest near the garden. He braved the stings and ran towards the terrified child, while the CPS agent gaped in horror behind the safety of a window pane. He clutched Sally's writhing body and shook off as many insects as he could before running back into the house with her limbs dangling like carrot tops. Her breath panted in shallow gulps and red whelps formed all over her skin.
Call an ambulance,
Gordon demanded of Miss Doak. She turned the rotary phone to access emergency services, each number stretching like an infinity. Gordon tended to Sally with cool rags and soft songs while they waited. The medics arrived and loaded Sally on a stretcher into the ambulance. Mrs. Jenkins and the whole Bennett family gathered on their lawns to watch the spectacle with tongue clicks and head shakes. Miss Doak followed the emergency vehicle to the hospital. Gordon slumped onto his front step and sobbed into Ed's plush blue fabric. The welts on his own arms and neck began throbbing to the beat of his broken heart. The day Apollo 11 re-entered the atmosphere and the astronauts returned safely to Earth, Gordon tore apart his garden. The rows were reduced to craters by the time he worked out his rage and found the wasp's nest. He stomped off to the shed to fetch a fresh can of Raid. He sprayed the papery quinine with a strip of expletives and poison. The straggling scout wasps nipped at skin, the pain from their stings eclipsed by his grief and worry. Security had prevented him from visiting Sally in the hospital, as per CPS orders. He had to assume she was all right, but no one would tell him anything. When the phone finally rang, he was covered in grime, but rushed to answer it. "Mr. Falkins?" Miss Doak's voice thudded through the line. "Do you mind if I pay you a visit?" Gordon did his best to tidy the house and wash up before she arrived. He waited for the knock on the door, sitting in his armchair, with his head in his shaking hands. He heard her sedan pull up and preemptively open the door. Sally stood with a smile as wide as the gate. Gordon sank to his knees. "I pulled some strings," said Miss Doak. Sally flew into Gordon's arms and nuzzled into his neck. "Hi, Gordo," she said with a giggle into his ear.
How?
Was all Gordon could muster as he hugged Sally. "Truthfully, I was really moved by how you saved Sally from the wasps. Your bravery spoke volumes about the lengths you go to protect her. And all Sally wanted in the hospital was you. Well, you and Ed.
I can't thank you enough.
I don't have much sway in my role, but my job is to recommend to the state what is in the best interest of the child. Even my manager was charmed when he met Sally in the hospital. She was very compelling, especially when she told us about your sandwiches." Gordon's happy tears spilled over Sally's purple sweater. He held her shoulders to examine her glowing face. The scars from the wasp's stings barely visible across her sweet cheeks. His unshaven lips kissed the top of her head. She galloped happily back into her home searching for Ed the horse. "It's a new world." Miss Doak shook her head with a glint in her eyes. "They put a man on the moon, you know. Raising a daughter might be only slightly more complicated than that." Gordon chuckled and wiped his eyes. "I'll check on you from time to time, but I have every confidence you and Sally will do just fine. The adoption paperwork will be in the mail," she said as she turned on her heels. Gordon thanked her again and closed the front door with the deepest sigh, expelling the pressure of anxiety that had expanded under his ribs over many months. He turned to Sally.
Egg salad for dinner, darling?
Gordon's cheeks hurt from smiling. Sure, he was the luckiest man in the solar system.
That was One Small Step for a Man by Erin, Brandt, Filliter. And it's such a heartwarming story. I think this piece is a great example of a story with a simple premise, a simple plot that is just beautifully executed. And it just goes to show you don't always need some grand and complex idea. It's really all about execution.
Yeah, I really enjoyed this piece. As readers, you just feel so much for Gordon in this situation. And for Sally as well, having lost her mother and in danger of losing Gordon, we see from the very beginning how sweet their relationship is and how much he cares for her. And it just seems wrong that they want to take her away from him just because he's now a single man and he had never formally adopted her after marrying her mother.
Yeah, it's a great premise, and I would think that anyone reading this would quickly come to that same conclusion and empathize with Gordon in this situation. But at the same time, when looking at the situation from a practical and impersonal standpoint, imagine that you don't know who Gordon is, and this is set in the 60s, remember. You can sort of kind of understand where Child Protective Services is coming from, wanting to make sure that the child is in a good environment with someone who can tend to all her needs. And you can see why, generally speaking, a two-parent household could seem preferable. But it's a sticky situation because every individual circumstance is different and should be judged as such, but that brings into question who gets the right to make such decisions and judgments. The state? I don't have much faith in them, but I don't know. It's a difficult situation for sure.
Yeah, for sure. And to go back to what you were saying about the piece being beautifully executed, the way the story is structured is sort of quintessential example of great storytelling. She introduces the conflict right away, introduces the characters, sets the scene, makes the stakes clear. The situation is one that we could think anyone can empathize with, so we immediately feel for this character. And then we ask, what does the character do about the conflict? And we see him going through the steps, going grocery shopping, cleaning the house, ignoring the judgments as he breaks out of the conventional gender roles that were particularly prevalent at that time. The primary action or climax of the story is when the CPS agent comes to visit. We get this dramatic scene with some great tension and suspense when Sally gets attacked by the wasps, and Gordon's natural actions in that emergency lead to the resolution that we all hope for.
Indeed, it was well written all around, and there are so many great specific details along the way as well, from his egg salad sandwiches to her plush toy that she loved, Ed, which she named after the Ed Sullivan Show. And then my very favorite line of this story is when Miss Doak says at the end of the story, "It's a new world. They put a man on the moon, you know. Raising a daughter might be only slightly more complicated than that." And that is just hilarious, and it makes for such a great moment. It just gives you this warm feeling, and although it's tongue-in-cheek, it does demonstrate an appreciation for the difficulty and importance of parenting, which is lovely, and the final lines are just great.
Yeah. I also love the symbolism and the analogy that we see with the fact that we were going to the moon and how that symbolizes a changing world and an advanced society, challenging limitations and surpassing them, exploration, and how that relates to what Gordon is going through along with society, how he challenges the conventional gender roles of the time, how he's facing the challenge and confronting it. I thought there were some really interesting parallels there.
It is a thoughtful story and touching.
Anything else you want to add?
I don't think so.
All right. Well, for the prompts, Eric chose a step-parent for the character. She selected the 1960s for the setting, and that could take place anywhere. It just needed to be clear that it was that decade. And the one thing that everyone had to include in this challenge was a wasp's nest.
And if you enjoyed this piece, make sure to check out Erin's website, erinfilliter.squarespace.com. And you can find some more of her work there.
And this information will be in the description wherever you are listening to this. And I think that's it for this episode.
Yes. And now back to work. We're going to finish up writing feedback and then make our final selections. And we will be announcing those winning stories on Thursday, the 30th. So look out for that.
Can't wait.
Thanks, everybody.
See ya.
Bye-bye.